Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast, coming at you live on a Thursday.
Live on a
Football is
Thursday.
back. It is almost the weekend. We have a fun episode for you. Going to preview both NCAA, NFL, of course, our upset and Drew Locks sprinkled in there as well. But we are less than a week away. The first college football playoff poll will be released on Tuesday, November 1st. So I want to give a quick poll ourselves going into the weekend and run through our top six teams. So we'll start, we'll each share our fourth place team, third, second, first, and then we'll each give the two that are just on the outside looking in. So why don't you kick it off with your number 4 team, Jill?
I got to go with the Tide. They seem to recover really well after that after that Tennessee loss. That Tennessee game was obviously neck and neck the entire time. And then as Nick Saban teams tend to do after a loss, came back extremely hot and absolutely mop the floor with against Mississippi State this past weekend, beating them 30-6. Mississippi State actually has had a pretty strong season. I mean, they hung in there with Kentucky the previous week, demolished Arkansas, who were they're kind of falling off a little bit, dominated Texas A&M, which in hindsight isn't all that impressive, but A&M was also able to hang in there with Alabama in previous weeks. So for them to just completely dominate Mississippi State, you got a healthy Bryce Young now. Jahmyr Gibbs still looks amazing. Question marks still kind of at that wide receiver position, I think. Will Anderson needs to stop jumping off sides, but I think they have, after that, hanging in there with Tennessee, last second field goal to lose, and then just wiping out Mississippi State this past weekend. I'm going to vault them into my top 4.
All right. My number 4 team is going up to Ann Arbor, and that is the Michigan Wolverines. We had talked numerous times about their early slate of games, and we weren't sure if they're really for real. But since we last recorded, they absolutely mopped the floor with Penn State a couple weekends back, and they're kind of firing on all cylinders right now. Blake Corum's having one heck of a season and running the ball, and I just don't see them losing a game until possibly that trip to Columbus at the end of the season. So I like Michigan right now.
Yeah, Michigan's been playing really well, so I'm good with that. My number 3 team, no change from last week at number 3. I got Tennessee. That was from, I guess, 2 weeks ago now. I had them at number 3 before they beat Alabama, and I'm going to keep them there at 3 still. They have 2 straight weeks of really tough games this upcoming weekend against Kentucky, the following week against Georgia. So we'll really see what they're made of. If they can come through that unscathed, I'm fine. I would probably bump them up to my number 1 team, but that's obviously 2 really tough tests. So if Hendon Hooker can keep playing the way that he has been playing, they have to absolutely be the best team in the country. But I'm still in a wait and see to see if Tennessee, if they can get through Kentucky this past weekend, maybe I'll bump them up a spot. But playing against Tennessee Martin this past weekend, it's it's not going to do enough for me to vault them up ahead of my top 2.
No, not at all. Tennessee, I've got in the 3rd spot as well. And like you had mentioned, we'll see these next 2 weeks. They get Kentucky at home, which as long as they don't get caught looking ahead to that matchup in Athens next week, they should be fine against a kind of a beat up and underperforming Kentucky team right now. But they could definitely move up in my rankings as well with back-to-back victories these next 2 weekends.
Number 2, same thing as the last time we put out our rankings. I'm gonna put Georgia there at number 2. They've got a test, if you want to call it a test, against Florida this weekend, but they do face Anthony Richardson. So if Florida lets Anthony Richardson play his, how he wants to play as being a true dual threat, Georgia may have a little bit of a challenge. There is a lot of talent on that Florida team, so it's up to Billy Napier to get the most out of that team at this point. But Georgia didn't play last weekend. The previous weekend, they beat Vandy 55-0. So still dominant. And we'll see how they play this weekend up against Florida. If they struggle at all, maybe that'll change things in going into next week. But I got Georgia as my number 2 team.
Yep. That's who I also have as number 2. They had a interesting game at Missouri 2 weekends ago. It came down to the wire, and Missouri hung in for a while. Georgia ended up escaping with the victory there. But outside of that game, Georgia has been looking like the Georgia team that won the national championship last year. Defense is shutting out opponents, keeping the minimal points on the board there, and their offense is doing what they need to do. Why is the tight end slipping my mind? Just absolute
the big 6'7"
monster
dude
right now. Yeah. Oh, what is his name? Oh, crap. I'm gonna have to look him up, but having just an absolute monster season so far. But yeah, Georgia looks good, and we'll hopefully have 2 undefeated teams meeting in Athens next week.
Well, they got a couple tight ends. Brock Bowers looks amazing.
Yes.
And then their monster is Darnell Washington. He's the 6'7", built like a really, really tall linebacker. He looks like he's going to be a beast. So, I don't see. I wonder if that Mizzou game, that almost feels like it was a wake up call for Georgia, and they're like, all right, no more messing around. Let's do what we know we can.
Yep.
I'm guessing we have the same number 1 here. Ohio State Buckeyes.
The Ohio State Buckeyes, Joe.
My bad. Beating Iowa 54-10. And Iowa got a pick 6. So Ohio State only let up 3 points on offense or on defense. Yes, that Iowa team is as pathetic as can be, but still a 54-10 victory. Really could have been more without that pick 6 against an Iowa team that traditionally has a strong defense. I mean, obviously the Hawkeyes are very down this season, but I got to give it to Ohio State. Dominant victory. And they've been dominating everyone they've played. By far the easiest schedule out of any of these top teams this season, but dominance is dominance.
Yep. And it gets tougher. We'll be talking about their matchup this week at Happy Valley against Penn State, but Ohio State's my number 1 team too. Just again, reasons you mentioned, they're firing on all cylinders. There hasn't been a tough test for them so far. They're doing exactly what they should be doing, and they're playing well going into some of these tougher games. So we'll see what happens at the end of the season. I expect them to be undefeated head into that last game against Michigan, but we'll see what happens this weekend against Penn State. Who's on the outside looking in for you, Joe?
Poor guys. I got to go. I'm going to put Michigan at 5. I could have put them at 4, but again, the way Alabama looked against Tennessee, I mean, they were right there. Bryce Young's now fully healthy. Who knows what his health status was against Tennessee? I mean, he didn't look 100% right. I think, just himself getting back into the rhythm and fully healthy, that's only going to help Alabama. So that's why I have to put them in and bump Michigan down to number 5. However, as you mentioned, that rushing attack for Michigan is just awesome. JJ McCarthy looks like the 5-star recruit that he was when he was brought in. And he's playing well. He's clearly beaten out Cade O'Donnell, or irrelevant. He's a backup. Yeah. Screw it. JJ McCarthy's just playing really well.
Nice. My number 5, I just had flip-flopped with your number 4. I've got Bama at 5 right now. I know Bryce Young was hurt, but their defense hasn't been hurt at all, and they've been susceptible to giving up a big play, giving up some points. I mean, A&M came in, almost beat them. They were putting up points. We obviously saw Tennessee that was a slugfest back and forth with the offenses and stuff. But outside of Will Anderson, they're not really getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback, and their defense just doesn't look as dominant as it has been in years past. So I worry about that a little bit, especially going into that LSU game next week. So we'll see if they can shore that up. But for that reason, I give Michigan the edge right now.
And that game is at Baton Rouge in Correct. A night game.
Yes,
so
sir.
6 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Central start. So that'll be
tough.
That'll be intense, man. I can't wait. And my number 6 team, I went back and forth between like 3 different squads here, between TCU, Clemson, and USC, but ultimately I'm going to give the nod to Clemson for them being able to get away from, or get the W in that Syracuse game when and facing a very solid Q squad that can run the ball really well, play some strong defense, force turnovers, which obviously ended up being the demise of DJ Uiagalelei. I think I'm betting going into this next week, they start DJ again. And if he struggles, I don't think they're going to have any reservations bringing Klubnik in. But given that they have kind of that option, and I mean, the Syracuse win, yeah, it was a struggle, but they still got a W. Q's is a strong team that has a really good running game and can keep games close. And for them to, eke out that W, I got to give them a little bit of credit. Give that team some credit for being able to pivot from, one QB to another, get that spark. This may be another wake-up call for Clemson that they needed, where maybe this will help vault them into, if they run the table, they could end up in the top 4.
I think there's a decent chance that they do run the table. Their schedule the rest of the way is pretty weak, and they're going to end up matching up against UNC probably in the championship game. Which, yeah, unfortunately, because I don't know if Clemson really passes the eye test right now for me, especially if they're undefeated. Darn well they're going to end up in that college football playoff, and I don't know if they're able to compete with some of those teams. We saw them struggle against Syracuse. Granted, like you said, Syracuse is a great team, but I mean, Clemson was at home for that one, and they almost lost on the road, had to beat Wake in overtime. And I don't know how I feel about them for that reason. I left them out of my top 6, and I put the Oregon Ducks in there. Oregon has been firing right now. Georgia has been playing well. And that was their only loss so far this season. It was that opening week game, and Oregon's going to have a good chance to go in and only have 1 loss going up against that USC team in the Pac-12 game. And I like Oregon right now. Bo Nix has turned around and got that fresh start that he needed leaving Auburn, and he's kind of rejuvenated his career, and Oregon's looking good right now.
Clemson kind of reminds me of that Florida State team back the year after Florida State won the title with Jameis, where they had all the talent. It seemed like they had everything, but there was just something missing about that team. And Florida State ended up getting stomped by Oregon, I believe. No, they beat whatever that's the year after they won the title. And I think that I would probably see that in Clemson's future if they do make the playoff, but ultimately they're still reeling in W's, and wins are wins, man. They're one of the 4 undefeated teams in the country right now, at least amongst the TCU too, but I guess 5 undefeated teams that are true contenders here. So I'm gonna give Clemson a little bit of an edge. Just Dabo Swinney's been there, done that, and I don't feel great about putting them at 6, but I think they kind of deserve it.
All right. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Be the first thing that pops up. Type in Dead Arm Sports into our YouTube page and subscribe. Click the bell there. Ding. And you'll be alerted when our live episodes drop. We monitor that chat feature, so you can ask us any questions there. If you miss our live feed, you can send us questions to our socials. We can be found at DasGel. That's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. And you can send us any questions there. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot of that review. We'll get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail for free. All right. Week 9 of the NCAA season is here. We've got the preview for you, and I'll go ahead and kick it off. Have a little bone to pick, I guess, with this Ohio State Penn State matchup in Happy Valley. Two things to say here. ESPN Game Day is going to Jackson State, which awesome. But if this was an SEC matchup, you damn well know that College Game Day would be in Happy Valley for this matchup. But I think they're giving the Big Ten the old fuck you and saying, no, we're going to do something else here. And two, fuck the Fox Big Noon game of the week.
So hard.
This game should not be played at 11 o'clock. This should be a night game. This should be a whiteout at Penn State. Like, what is going on? I mean, I appreciate being a Big Ten fan, Fox giving us money for the conference.
This is how we end up with USC and UCLA.
Yes. At the same time, though, this cannot be an 11 o'clock kickoff. Like, come on.
The whiteout games at Penn State in Happy Valley, those are always, I mean, that's right up there with LSU night games as possibly the best two night game environments in all of college football. And that's literally all I wrote down. OSU at Penn State, 11 a.m. That's all that needs to be said. That's such a damn disappointment for a game that matters a ton.
Especially in the landscape of the Big East. And yeah, they had the fucking whiteout game last week for the absolute ass whooping the Penn State gave Minnesota.
Why did they do it? Because that's all that was left for Penn State. Hey, we got to do a whiteout game sometime. It should be against Ohio State. And yeah, I think Ohio State comes up with a W here, but Sean Clifford, very experienced quarterback, night game. He would be nervous about this. He'd be pumped to be playing in this game. He's not the greatest quarterback ever, but sometimes it just takes a junior, an upperclassman leader to make these upsets happen, especially in a night game, especially when all those Nittany Lion fans had a full day to drink and get rowdy. Like 11 a.m. really? It's just going to be, I don't know. It's just not the same. And this Ohio State Penn State game has pretty much always feels like it's been the night game on ESPN. And I don't know, Big Noon needs to shift to big prime time or something if they're going to be doing this, because this is garbage. I'd be fine if they did the Big Noon playoff or Big Noon kickoff pregame at Happy Valley, and then just made Brady Quinn and Reggie Bush just sit around for another 6 hours until the game actually starts, so that at least we get a night game here and they can go and, jerk each other off or something for the next 6 hours. Like, their pregame show sucks anyways.
Speaking of which, I tweeted out today, you can go to my personals and look, there's some ad that popped up for the Big Noon kickoff question of the week or something. They wanted you to vote. And I just commented, who's watching that when game day's on? Big Noon kickoff is absolute garbage.
Rob Stone sucks. I actually he's a terrible host. All he does is yell and gets the crowd all riled up, so you can't hear anything what Quinn or Reggie Bush or whoever is saying. ESPN does it right. They've got people saying shh, hey, Herb Street's saying something good, David Pollack is saying something good, slow down. And then Desmond Howard will be like, and by the way, go Wolverines. And then the place will go nuts or whatever. It's just the entire Fox show is they're just screaming at the crowd the whole time. And everybody's yelling over each other. It sucks. Rant over. But this, I guess, going to the game, looking at the game itself, I don't see Ohio State really struggling here. They're going to score too many points for Penn State to, I think, hang. But hopefully, this is, at least if it was a night game, you'd think Penn State can hang in there for 3 quarters. I just don't. I could see Ohio State winning this game by 24.
Yeah, the only way that Penn State keeps this one close is if Nick Singleton, Katron Allen can keep the Buckeyes offense off of the field and eat some of that clock, sustain long drives. But I don't know. I mean, this is one of two remaining tests for Ohio State. This is their toughest road game the rest of the way out, and then obviously host Michigan at the end of the season this year. So if Ohio State can walk away from this one, that they should be a lock for the football playoff.
What's crazy is that this Penn State backfield of these two true freshmen, I mean, by the time that they're draft eligible, they might be just as dynamic of a duo as Saquon and Miles Sanders that Penn State had a few years ago.
Yeah.
Crazy, just having these dual threat backfields. I'm going to bring it over to Wake Forest, Louisville.
Ooh.
Points on points on points. That's the only reason I bring it up. It's going to be one of the more fun games to watch this weekend. I mean, Wake Forest has the upper hand, as one of the top offenses in the nation, I believe number 10 in the AP, and fuck the AP rankings, by the way, but it's how that Louisville offense always goes. It's points, and Wake Forest defense, not anything special. Their offense is what it is. Their offense is the only thing worth a damn. I think that's probably right now, just looking at the schedule, that's going to be that mid-afternoon 2:30 Central Time game that you're going to want to watch, because it's just going to be so damn entertaining. And hey, if you say, take a drink for every touchdown or every field goal, you're going to be well libated by the night games. So that'll be a super entertaining, just high scoring, a lot of fun games in Louisville. I mean, Louisville's nothing special this year, but they can still score, and Wake is just going to put up a ton of points.
I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here and take the two ranked SEC teams that are battling it out in Knoxville this week, and that's Kentucky traveling to Tennessee. Tennessee should, like I mentioned earlier, should not have a problem with Kentucky at all. Kentucky struggled of late. Tennessee's going to put up a ton of points in this one, but just curious, that game next week is going to be so hyped. It's already hyped. It's going to be one of the biggest games of the college football season, assuming Tennessee wins this one. So hopefully Tennessee is not looking too far ahead to that one. You wouldn't think that they would be with a ranked Kentucky.
This is also a rivalry game for them.
It's a rivalry game. So, and just saw when I was scrolling through Twitter, believe it was Unnecessary Roughness account tweeted out, Tennessee is wearing their black uniforms with orange lettering on them, and they look absolutely fantastic.
That sounds badass.
Yes, I retweeted it out. So go to our socials at Dead Arm Sports, and you can see the reveal video of this absolute fire uniform that they're going to be rocking this weekend.
Looking forward to that. It'll be, two of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, if, two of the top three between Will Levis, Hendon Hooker. Yeah, that's all you need to say there. It's just two, and both those guys are probably going to go in the top, could very possibly go in the top 10 in this NFL draft.
Yeah.
Hendon Hooker may be the one to fall, given that he's 25 already, but but still, but either way, regardless of his NFL status, great, just still a great college quarterback. And Will Levis has been, his stock has been rising since the start of the season. So definitely the best, probably the best matchup of the weekend straight up between Kentucky and Tennessee. You're the only 10 I see. I'm going to go over to the ACC, Pitt at UNC. UNC coming off two way too close W's, and then, a bye before this game, but 3 weeks ago, beating Miami by 3, who just lost to Duke, got blown out by Duke, and then the next game beating Duke by 3. Of course, that's obviously much more of a college basketball rivalry than a college football rivalry, but somehow UNC vaulted into the top 25 at 21. I think undeservingly so, given that barely, I mean, all their wins, or just about all their wins, I mean, beating App State by 2, beating Georgia State by a touchdown, losing to a shitty Notre Dame team early in the season, beating a crap Miami team by 3, beating a crap Duke team by 3. So yes, their record looks good, but they certainly should not be a top 25 team. AP, you suck again. Pitt coming off a loss of previously mentioned Louisville. However, and they're certainly not anything impressive this season, but I think this is kind of a battle of two disappointing teams. I'm definitely hoping that Pitt knocks UNC off here and lets UNC go, drink their own tears, because for some reason they're a top 25 team, but it is a night game at UNC. See if Mac Brown, if he gets that W, let him do another sideline dance like he did in his previous win when they barely beat Appalachian State earlier in the season.
I'm going to throw a Pac-12 game out there for my last one, and the only reason I'm doing it is because the NFL Thursday night game has been so brutal the last few weeks. We did get an okay game this last week between Arizona Cardinals, but outside of that, it's been a dud. And you can flip over and watch some Pac-12 kicking off at 9 p.m. Central Time, and that's Utah traveling to Washington State. Both teams a little bit disappointing, but I expect there to be quite a bit of points put up in this one, and should just be kind of a fun one that you could turn on even after the college football NFL game, catch the second half and see two pretty solid college quarterbacks in, like you said, Cam Ward, Cam Rising, battle the Cams, and should be a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only noteworthy Pac-12 really game of the week this week, which is kind of surprising. It seems like every week that Pac-12 slate has been pretty loaded, but a little light this week. But
couple buys, I think, in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. But Washington State, they can still score, and like you said, battle of the Cams, so should be a good time. That tight end for Dalton Kincaid for Utah went.
You should know. You just picked him up.
Sure did, baby. Dynasty. Woo! He just went off last weekend, 200 plus yards. So we'll see how involved he gets. Him and Cam versus Cam and whatever the hell is on that Washington State offense.
Any other games you want to throw out, Joe?
Yeah, last one here is Miami at Virginia. Miami's just a train wreck.
So bad.
So is Virginia. I just want to see if Miami can somehow eke out a W. They've been such a disappointment. You thought Tyler Van Dyke, hey, he's going to be a lock first round pick. He's played like crap. That entire Mario Cristobal's going off, starting to blame players for not being the right players for his system. Like, Mario, you don't need to start. This is the same thing I had with the Rodgers deal. Like, Rodgers, you don't really need to play the blame game. Neither do you, Mario Cristobal. You got like a $95 million or $80 million buyout here, buddy. You don't need to start blaming players publicly. You can go shit on your team in the locker room all you want, but he's already kind of unraveling as the head coach. And yeah, I'm sure he's getting a ton of pressure from boosters who they're like, dude, we paid for a shit ton of transfers here and expecting much more than this shit team who lost to Middle Tennessee State and to Duke with Tyler Van Dyke, who was regarded as one of the top quarterbacks going to next year's draft, with a really sweet running back, with one of the top defensive lines. If just looking at their defensive line as an entire unit, one of the more talented units in all of college football, especially within that conference. So for them to get absolutely blown out by Duke last weekend, inexcusable. So I want to see if they can rebound. And if they can't rebound against a lowly Virginia team, not the Hokies, the Virginia Cavs, that's going to be, that'll just be the icing on the cake of what so far has been a dog shit season for Miami.
No relation to the Cleveland Cavs there either. This is the
Nice.
Virginia Cavs.
Yeah, not the same place, buddy.
Speaking of basketball, Duke is usually a basketball school, and that was your upset pick of the week last week. You
W's,
are on
baby.
a hot
3
streak.
straight.
3 straight. So Gel is up 3-1. If you're new to the show, welcome in. This is the segment where Gel and I each pick an upset team. And you get points based on how big of an underdog they are. 7 to 13.5 point dog is worth a point. 14 to 20.5 is worth 2, and anything 21 up is worth 3. So 3-1 score. Gel is in the lead. And who do you got this week, Gel? Make it 4 in a row.
Yeah. 3 weeks ago, I had Utah State over Air Force at +10 for my first upset of the season. Next week, I had Tennessee over Bama at +7.5. Last week, Duke over Miami at +9. So just a reminder there. I need to rub that in a little bit, Mr. JP.
Almost had Vandy over Missouri last week.
What was that? 14-17 final.
Yeah.
So close.
No.
But close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. I'm gonna go for a little bit bigger of an upset this week. Okay. And I'm gonna take Rutgers over Minnesota as a 14.5 point favorite. Rutgers coming off a win over Indiana last week. Indiana hung in there really well with Michigan for the most part, especially early on in the game. So that Indiana team is no slouch. But for Rutgers to get a win over Indiana, that's a pretty quality win. Minnesota's coming off a brutal loss last week to Penn State, 45-17. And then their previous game losing to Illinois 26-14. So Rutgers' momentum is up. Minnesota's momentum going down. I'm going to go for the 2-point victory here, I'm taking Rutgers over Minnesota as a 14.5 point dog.
I like it. I actually was thinking about that one, but just couldn't pull the trigger on it. So I was wanting to go for the tie, but also wanted to see if I could get climb back into it a little bit. So I went with a 7.5 point home underdog. And this is a team we haven't really gotten to talk much about this year, Gel, for obvious reasons, but I'm going to take Nebraska at home over Illinois this week. Illinois coming in, and I don't know. Nebraska hasn't really done anything to make me think that they're going to win this game, but for whatever reason, I just have a little bit of a gut reaction here that I think Nebraska could end up finding an Illinois team coming off of a bye, maybe a little bit rusty, and really make this Big Ten West division just an absolute shit show if Nebraska were to pull off an upset.
It really
here.
will be.
So,
it already is.
It is.
Let's just add to it.
Let's add to it. But yeah, I don't know. Nebraska, I think they're going to find a win somewhere down the stretch here and maybe pull off the upset here.
It was a little tempting just because it feels like Nebraska at some point they're due, right? And yeah. Illinois is kind of due for a loss at some point. Plus, fuck Brett Bielema. So I'm good with it, but yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, moving into the NFL, we are at week 8. So crazy how fast the season is going right now. Halloween approaching us, but again, not a ton here on the slate this week. A couple of good matchups towards the end of the week that I want to get into a little bit, but I think I want to kick it off here and talk about your Green Bay Packers, Gel. Packers at Bills. And Aaron Rodgers had comments after this last game that he likes the spot that they're in. Nobody's going to be giving them a chance. This is kind of a game where he can maybe bounce back. But I don't like those comments at all. I just think that the Bills are going to go in and just absolutely destroy the Packers. Bills had a week off to rest up this last week. It's in Buffalo, and Packers, man, their defense, for whatever reason, is having a lot of trouble stopping the pass right now. I mean, we saw Bailey Zappi have a pretty solid performance against them in a loss a couple weeks back, and then Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson getting wins, and Taylor Heineke this last week throwing the ball. And Terry McLaurin had a good day against that Packers defense. So I don't know. Rodgers' comments this week with them being an underdog and they're in a good spot because nobody's going to be giving them a chance. And I don't think that they have a chance. And I don't think that's going to be a chip on the Packers' shoulder because I think they're just going to get absolutely whomped in Buffalo this week.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers saying, hey, this is the best thing that happened to us, or this could be the best thing that could happen to us, losing that game. Nope, it's not. You just lost to the Jets, the Giants, and Washington in 3 straight weeks. There's nothing positive to come out of that.
It is better this year than as opposed to last year, a couple of years back. I mean, those teams have decent records, but still,
I mean, yes, but still, it's Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz, and Zach Wilson with a second-year head coach, Ron Rivera, who doesn't really know how to coach an offense, and then a rookie head coach in Brian Daboll. So that looks like, I mean, Daboll money higher. I'm happy about Saleh. It looks like his side of the ball is the defense. It looks like their defense is strong. I don't know about Ron Rivera anymore. I don't know if he's got it. I mean,
did he ever? I mean, he had the one season that Carolina made it to the Super Bowl, and outside of that, he really wasn't that great in Carolina.
Well, and he had one of the most dominant quarterbacks in that time in Cam Newton, and probably the most defensive player in Luke Kuechly at that time as well. So
good old Luke.
I miss Luke Kuechly, man. He was a beast. But no, I would not be shocked if the Bills win this game 41-10. Like, I think this is line right now, I believe, is 10.5.
Yeah, first time I think in Rodgers' career he's a double-digit underdog in a game,
and he should be. This is a terrible Packer team, and this is a freaking awesome Bills team. So,
fun fact, Joe: the Bears and Packers have the same record.
Yikes! not great, Bob. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Packers are bad. Bills are really good. that sums up that Sunday night game. I'm going to switch over to a Bears Cowboys matchup here. And reason I bring that game up is
I was going to bring it up because of this reason you're about to say.
Yours truly will be sitting in section 412 for this game.
Couldn't get 420.
Blaze, bro. What? No, but they're actually going to be pretty, they're up there, but they're fine. I mean, they're at the 50-yard line. So it's nice. Should be some pretty good seats. So that's a Sunday noon game for you central timers, for Mr. Nickley. That's going to be a 1:00 start for you out there. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that game. Glad that Dak is back, so I don't have to watch Justin Fields versus Cooper Rush, but I will. I don't know who I'm going to be rooting for, but I'm going to be rocking Packers gear for sure.
Oh, jeez, come on.
I want both teams to lose. Let's see a tie. Never seen a tie. Never been there for a tie.
No, this was a game I wasn't really looking forward to at all until we're recording on Tuesday, until last night's game happened. And I want to see if the Bears offense can carry over some of that momentum. We had talked about Luke Getsy had an actually good game plan where they were having designed runs for Fields. They were utilizing his strengths for once, which crazy. I mean, who would think that you'd want somebody's strengths to show during a game? I mean, that's crazy talk.
It's
right?
the most frustrating thing. It's the most frustrating thing ever when I hear a coach say, well, this is our system. It's like, no, it's your system. It's not the players on the field. Like it's you as a head coach. It's your system. Why don't you utilize your players' best skills and tweak your system? They're the ones that are making the plays. So it's good to see Luke Getsy actually utilize Justin Fields' strengths, where Matt Nagy obviously never did, and tried to basically eliminate Justin Fields' legs for his 2 years here in Chicago with or I guess 1 year with Fields.
Yep. And it'll be interesting. Obviously, the Cowboys defense is a lot better than New England's defense. So they're going to be getting a ton of pressure on Justin Fields. So I don't expect the Bears offense to be as good, but just wanted to see if they can take some strides forward, and excited too to see the Bears defense against the Cowboys offense as well. Roquan Smith had a monster game last night. Brisker had a hell of an interception on the lollipop that Mac Jones threw up yesterday before he got benched. And Kyler Gordon had a nice game as well too. So some of these rookies are stepping in and making the Bears defense at least respectable. And we'll see what the offense can do this week too.
Yeah, I mean, right now Dallas is going in as a 9.5-point favorite. I think that's way too much. I bet I could see this being a 20-17 game going either way. At 10 point, or you need 10 points if you're betting Dallas.
Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot, especially the way that they played against a Belichick defense. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely be taking up enough photos and maybe I'll throw some stuff up there on the Twitter when we get out there.
Like it. Next game I want to talk about is we're going to talk about it anyway. It's the Giants at Seahawks. Giants. Who'd have thunk, right? Battle of two. Well, I guess the Giants are technically one game out of the lead of the division, but two teams atop their divisions are pretty close to it. And yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of interested just to sit and just kind of take this game in. I mean, Saquon has had a bounce back year. He's looking phenomenal. I'm excited to see Kenneth Walker going up against this Giants defense. He should have a nice run at it again this week, and just kind of see what Geno can do as well, and see if they can keep rolling or if the Giants are going to run in. And the Giants, it's just, to me, amazing that they keep winning games with Wan'Dale Robinson as their pretty much only wide receiver. I mean, Kenny Galladay's trash. And it's garbage. I mean, they literally have nobody to throw the ball to. Daniel Bellinger, the rookie tight end, was having a halfway decent season so far. He got fractured his orbital bone, so he's going to miss some time. So he's not in.
So painful.
Yeah, so I unfortunately can't keep rolling with my Drew Lock theme of picking the tight end going up against the Seahawks because he's out this week. So I'll have to pivot there. But no, I'm just kind of excited to take this one in. And Seahawks are a fun team. I was catching some of their game last week through Red Zone because the game wasn't live here, but they're entertaining. I don't know.
My favorite part about this game is that it's going to be in Seattle, and you know that if you're going to hear those Geno chants. I'm excited for that. But yeah, I mean, going back to the Giants too, their game or their go ahead drive in this past weekend against the Jags, they ran the ball 9 of their 10 plays on that go ahead drive. Saquon is absolutely back to form. And if they keep that formula going, their defense plays well, their offensive line looks better. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau as their early first round pick, he looks to be a difference maker already as a rookie. And I don't know, this Giants team. I said this about the Jets last week, that this current Jets team kind of reminds me of their Mark Sanchez teams, where they had a sweet defense. Their QB was just kind of a game manager, and they had a dominant corner in Darrelle Revis back then. Right now, game manager at quarterback and Zach Wilson, good run game. Jets obviously bringing in Breece Hall, or losing Breece Hall, bringing in James Robinson, and Sauce Gardner is playing the Darrelle Revis. The Sauce is the boss. The Giants are this is similar-ish to the Giants teams that were good back in the late 2010 or late 2000/2010, where Eli Manning didn't have to be spectacular. He just kind of had to not screw. Eli was never spectacular, which he's going to make the Hall of Fame because he beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, but he was never really spectacular. If Daniel Jones went 19 of 30 for 202 through the air, but had 107 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, so if Daniel Jones doesn't turn the ball over, they have a dominant running game with Saquon, just like back in the day with Brandon Jacobs and they had one other dude, and just a good
Tiki.
It was after Tiki. Was it with Tiki?
No, I don't.
Okay, I was gonna say.
I just wanted to yell Tiki out.
And then
Tiki and Ron Dane.
Ron Dane. Oh my god. But it just kind of reminds me of that team. I mean, good, strong corners. Adoree Jackson is one of the leaders on that team. Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, kind of leading that defensive line. And I mean, they're playing, obviously they're 6-1, so they're playing winning football. So it's, I mean, I'll be sitting here rooting for the Hawks just because Geno. Kenneth Walker, dominant. Insane to say that this is probably the best game of this weekend, or could be the best game of this weekend, given that a lot of these other teams that are playing this week have been pretty disappointing. So I'm definitely looking forward to this game. This is my game that I want to watch for the afternoon slate.
We'll have to hustle out of Jerry World to catch it.
Go over to Texas Live over in Arlington and
nice.
I guess have a couple pops probably. What?
Any other games, Joe?
Let's stay on that West Coast here and go Niners Rams. That is the other afternoon game that looks to be really, really nice. Gotta see. I mean, I'm assuming the Niners bounce back here versus after getting mollywopped by the Chiefs. But the Rams are coming off a bye. Do you think that the Rams here, coming off that bye, maybe had a little bit of time to kind of reevaluate their squad? Do you think the Rams could bounce back here? Or I guess what's your overall take here between the Niners and the Rams?
I think that San Francisco is probably going to end up winning this game. The Rams are in too much of shamble right now, and they don't have a run game. They're obviously had the news, was that 2 weeks ago or a week ago, that after we had gotten done recording, that they don't even really want Cam Akers anymore. He's going to be gone. He's probably played his last snap in a Rams uniform. So now you've got Darrell Henderson, and
well, they were going after Christian McCaffrey too.
Yeah, they were going. That's rumor why San Francisco gave up as much as they did, because they wanted him and had to up it over Los Angeles.
Play a little keep away.
Yep. So, and CMC will have another week in the system. Will have a full week of practice instead of just showing up and reading the playbook from his flight from Carolina to San Francisco last week to try and get some of the playbook memorized. But we'll have a full week of practice this week, so we'll get to utilize him a little bit more. And I don't know, the Rams, I just think that window slammed closed when they left the Super Bowl with the Lombardi Trophy last year. And I think this is their demise, but they opened up the 21-day window, I think, for Van Jefferson. So maybe that gives them a little bit of life to have some semblance of a passing game outside of Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson hasn't done a whole lot. Tyler Higbee's been serviceable, but I don't know if their offense is not the same as it was last year. You wonder if they're going to be picking up the phone for Odell here in a little bit, if they can't turn it around and are still
they need to pick up the phone for
Andrew
Whitworth. Get him out of retirement. That offensive line is a travesty.
Yeah.
I've got this is my best bet of the week is Niners -2. I just think, I'm imagining that Niners defense, after getting embarrassed by the Chiefs, is going to come out with, all systems go. Nick Bosa against that porous Rams offensive line. I see it. I don't know how the Rams are going to score more than 13 points. Seriously, their offense has been terrible all season so far. And now you're facing the Niners with that defensive front and those corners and they have 3 safeties that could be starters. And so obviously they're playing all 3 of them. I think, I mean, that's my best bet on the week is Niners -2 over, I almost said St. Louis over LA. That's a few
Might as
years
well be
ago.
in St. Louis, yeah. Any other games you want to throw out there, Joe? Mine are wrapped up.
Yeah, the only other games, and this is just, I mean, I need to talk about some of these phony teams that looked great in the beginning, or looked like they either going into this season looked great or started off the season looking like they were legit and have now fallen off the map. Miami at Detroit. Miami looks legit. Detroit, screw you, man. You gave so many fans hope that you were going to be legit. You hung in you got a W early on and you hung in there against the Eagles, and now you're just getting absolutely destroyed. It sucks because I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, the Lions are, they're actually kind of turning this around. I don't know if that's a Dan Campbell function. I don't know if that's a Jared Goff function, but they've got some nice weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown went out early last game, but even when he was playing, they didn't do squat. They scored 6 points that game, and it's just disappointing on the Lions piece. I don't know if that, like I said, is that a Dan Campbell thing?
I think it's just them kind of shooting themselves in the foot too. I mean, they're on the goal line with the Cowboys. Jamal Williams coughs it up, and when they were getting ready to score there, not that they would have won the game or anything, but it would have been a little bit more respectable. But I just think they're shooting themselves in the foot. DeAndre Swift has been hurt. And like you said, Amon-Ra St. Brown was out for a game with a concussion, and then he missed this last one pretty much the whole game with the concussion. So I don't know, but I don't know if biting kneecaps is the answer there in Detroit, but they're going to be lined up probably for a top quarterback and get their pick of quarterbacks this next year. So
it looks like it right now. They're lined up for that number one lined up right now for the number 1 overall pick. So Jared Goff, look out. Next game I want to touch on really quick, Denver at Jacksonville, 2 complete phonies where
you're a big fat phony.
Denver obviously looked like, some people are saying, hey, they could end up in the Super Bowl or in the NFC title game or AFC title game, or at least wild card at the worst. And it looks like, as we talked about early on in the season or preseason, I guess, when we said, hey, big, when we were doing our big picks, are they more likely to finish first or last in that division? We both said last. That looks like that's coming true on the Denver side. On the Jacksonville side, week 1, close loss to Washington in a game that Washington got, they had a last minute deep ball to Jahan Dotson where Washington gets that win. Next week, they beat the Colts 24-0. The next week, they dominate the Chargers 38-10. And from then on, it's been a free fall. They've lost their last 4 to the Eagles, the Texans, the Colts, the Giants. Phonies, frauds, absolute, just unacceptable from the Jags. And I bought into Doug Peterson because that team did look extremely legit right away, but they've just, again, 0-4 in their last 4, and it's, God, they gave me so much hope. I was ready to buy into Trevor Lawrence. I was ready to buy into that offense. I was ready to say, oh my God, Trayvon Walker, great pick at number 1. And I still think that he does still look strong, but
yeah,
going 0-4 in your last 4 games after through the first 3 looking really good, extremely disappointed to go 0-4 in their last 4.
PSA announcement as well. This game is in London this week. So if you have anybody going for fantasy, make sure you set your alarm early on Sunday to make sure that they are active. So
home game for Jacksonville.
People, yeah. No, a lot of people got burned by the first London game of the season with Alvin Kamara being a late scratch and not seeing that until after the game had started. So I'll make sure you are aware of that. It is time for our Drew Locks of the week. So Jill tweeted out over the weekend our picks from this last week. Since we didn't record, we had gone back and forth via text, just drafting our rosters. And Jill had one hell of a performance from Josh Jacobs this last week, but unfortunately got the W on, or the L on the week, and still on the season. I have a nice let's call it 4.8 something lead. So very close, but I was nervous. Josh Jacobs was absolutely tearing me a new one, but then Kenneth Walker busted off that 74-yard touchdown and got me back in there. Yes, sir.
Is that touchdown?
Yes, sir. So if you are new to the show, each week, Jill and I pick a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and tight end. Once you use that player, you cannot use them again, and you can't pick the same player that your opponent picked for the week. So week 8, I have even weeks, so I am up first. I had alluded earlier in the episode that I usually go with whatever tight end is playing against the Seahawks, and I can't do that this week, unfortunately, with the Giants not really having any tight ends now. So I'm going to go with the next best team to play your tight end against, and that is the Arizona Cardinals, and Big Irv Smith has a nice matchup. Big Irv. So not going to be able to use him a ton this season, but Cardinals have been an absolute train wreck against the tight end position. So I'm rolling with Big Irv this week.
All right. I'm all right with that. I mean, Arizona has been despicable against the tight end. So there you go. I'm going to go with a little Pennsylvania matchup here. I'm going to lock in AJ Brown as my wideout here versus Pittsburgh. That secondary is starting to get healthier, but still a little beat up. Yeah, they held Miami to 16 points. That's in this past weekend in that Sunday night game, but Philly's offense is just better than Pittsburgh, so or than Miami's. So I'm gonna go AJ Brown here. He's been awesome.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like that pick a lot. I'm gonna go with the running back position here, and you had talked about this team being an absolute embarrassment so far this year, and I'm gonna roll with Raheem Mostert going up against Detroit.
Wow.
Dallas had a nice day on the ground last week, and Raheem Mostert should have an absolute field day against this Detroit defense. Detroit has just been an absolute sieve for passing, running, everything. So again, not going to get to use Raheem Mostert a ton this year. So I think this is a good spot for him. I expect Miami to be up big in this one and Mostert to get a ton of carries here.
All right. Well, I might as well lock in my stack here then and lock in Jalen Hurts as my quarterback. Again, Stack City over in my Drew Lock history. So let's stack it up. Jalen Hurts.
I like it. I had him written down, but it just scared me a little bit because I just think Philly's going to be up so big in this one that I don't know if Hurts is even going to get a full 4 quarters of action in this one. So I was tempted to pick him. I like the matchup. I think he's going to be good this week, but I wanted to save him maybe for one that's going to be more of a shootout back and forth and everything. But
that's possible.
I like that stack.
That's possible, but they have been up early in all of their games, and he was still they haven't pulled him early, or they haven't pulled him early at all. So
true.
I feel comfortable with it.
All right, I'm going to roll with my stack here, and he's not playing in prime time, so I'm going to go Kirk Cousins. So,
noon Kirk,
or maybe it might even be 3:30 Kirk, but either way, it's not a night game.
It's not a night game.
So going up against Arizona again, Arizona's defense has not been great. Minnesota's coming off of their bye, going to be well rested. So I like Big Irv this week, Kirk, Justin Jefferson, the whole lot. So I rolling with Kirky.
Dr. Kirk. All right. Well, I'm going to stick with a formula that got me a shit ton of points last week. Josh Jacobs against Houston, dominated. I'm going to go Derrick Henry against Houston this week as my running back. And I expect another monster day against that Texans defense.
I like it. Yeah, I used Derrick Henry week 1, so I unfortunately did not have him to pick out here. So my last pick then is the wide receiver position. This is a game we didn't really talk about a lot in the matchups, but I think could be a fun one to watch. And that is Las Vegas against New Orleans. Las Vegas's offense was kind of clicking this last week, and I think the Saints are going to be behind in this one and have to play catch up. And Chris Olave is having an absolute monster season so far, so I'm going to roll with him. We don't know the status of Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas at all. Heck, we don't even know who's going to be behind center. But one thing is for certain, it doesn't matter who's behind center. Chris Olave has been having monster weeks so far, so I'm going to get some nice points here from Mr. Olave.
Yeah, that boom bust question that we had asked before week 1,
nailed it.
You got that one right.
Yes, sir.
He is an absolute boom. Olave's been awesome. I will round out my team with TJ Hawkinson as my tight end facing Miami. We saw Hawk strap. we saw Freiermuth get a few targets this last week, and I like Hawk now that it seems like he's healthy, and we don't know the status of Amon-Ra St. Brown either, coming off that concussion. So last time Amon-Ra was out, Hawkinson had the best week of any tight end all season. So if Amon-Ra
did they play that week, Joe? Seattle.
Shocker. So I'm gonna hawk it up here, hawk a loogie, and go with TJ, and sadly hoping that Amon-Ra's out with a concussion, a lingering concussion.
All right.
I have an agenda.
So Joe is rolling with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, TJ Hawkinson. I am rolling with Kirk Cousins, Chris Olave, Raheem Mostert, and Irv Smith Jr. So I'll see if I can hang on to my lead. Tune in next Thursday and you will find out. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Type Dead Arm Sports into that search bar on YouTube, and you will find us. Subscribe, click the bell so that way you know when our live episodes drop. You can ask us questions during our live show via the chat. Otherwise, you can reach out to us on our socials. Gel can be found at DawsonGel. I can be found at DawsonJPEG. Send your questions away. You can also find us on our listening platform. Subscribe, rate, and review there. Get you some swag sent out in the mail. What are those platforms, Gel?
Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review there. Again, take a screenshot of that written review. Send it to us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, on whatever you chose listening platform. Did you make a MySpace? They can't be up. I think your only friend might be Tom on there.
We're still working on getting Jeeves to let us into Ask Jeeves as well.
Yeah, I can't believe it's so hard to get a hold of him.
I know.
Make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well. Just search Dead Arm Sports. Our channel should be the first thing that pops up at the top of your page. Subscribe and hit that alert button, the big bell at the top of your top of the page.
Ding 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 ding.
Okay, who uses Bing, by the way? Like, I'm gonna Bing that. Nobody's ever done that, said that, at least not on purpose.
Right.
Oh, good God. Okay, take it over.
Appreciate everybody out there listening. Hopefully you enjoyed our show. If you did, make sure you tell somebody that you know, help spread the word. That way we can get you even more content and help get Dead Arm Sports popular on the search engines. Get us up the ranks. But until then, hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Whoever you're cheering for, unless it's the Packers, I hope they win. And Joe, close us out.
Douche. Is your name Hayden Hooker? Because you're the only 10 I see.